And welcome back to Community Focus, where it's all about what matters locally to you. I'm Noah Dingley, your host, and, we talk about things that affect the community. We sometimes branch out to things that affect the state of California, sometimes even on a national basis, but it will impact you here in San Diego. Something that is going on nationwide, it is currently hitting the fan in California, is the upgrading of your driver's license. What? We've been doing it the same way for as long as since I can remember. But there is a new type of ID that you can start to get as of January 22nd of this year, 2018. It's called the Real ID. And don't freak out. You don't have to get it just yet, but Monday's the first day you can get it. And to talk all about that, we are pleased to welcome my guest, Steve Miller. He's the president, founder of Getdismissed.com, to the show. And Steve, we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, tell me a little bit about Get Dismissed. I know you've been doing it for 14 years. What is it that you guys do down there?
Yeah, hi, Noah. Happy to be here. What we do is we've been helping California drivers fight traffic tickets for just about 14 years. And the way we do it is with what's called a trial by written declaration. This is actually the best way in California to fight a ticket without going to court. It's been around since 1978.
Okay.
It's an option on the back of every ticket as a way to fight a ticket without going to court. And with our system, we have enabled California drivers who want to contest a traffic ticket to simply fight that ticket with a trial by declaration. It's a great system. Yeah,
it sounds like the big old hefty fine I just paid for not paying attention to a set of double yellow lines. Maybe I should have read the back of my ticket first.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is most people don't read the back of the ticket, right? It's a bunch of small print, and a lot of people still haven't heard about a trial by declaration, even though we've helped tens of thousands of people in those 10 years. And when you do a trial by declaration, the best part of it, like I said, is that you do not have to go to court. If the ticket is dismissed, though, there's no point on the record. The bail is returned to you. It didn't cost you anything. It's like it never happened.
Wow.
But if by chance it's not dismissed because only the court can make the decision, you're right back where you started. So it's sort of a no-lose proposition. You can still take traffic school if you're eligible for traffic school.
Okay.
And you can still go to court to fight the ticket if you want to go to court. So it's the only way in the California legal system that you actually get two bites at the apple and have nothing to lose. So why not, try to contest that ticket and see if it will get dismissed with a declaration before you opt for any of your other options.
Wow, sounds like there's absolutely no reason to not do it, right?
Absolutely not. It's a really simple process, and we provide you everything you need to just print out, sign, and send to the court. You don't have to write anything up. You just take a picture of your driver's license, take a picture of your traffic ticket, answer some quick questions, and our system provides you with a completed defense package and trial by declaration. You print, sign, send to the court.
I love it. Well, people, check it out. It's getdismissed.com if you're like me and have recently got, and I'm a safe driver. I will point that out there right now. I was in a hurry, but I'm very safe. But if you have made a mistake and you want to get it checked out and, maybe there's a way out of it, there is no reason to not do this. Just go to getdismissed.com. Check it out. Steve and the team be more than willing to help you out there. Well, Steve, let's get to the crux of the pie here and talk about the Real ID. I know this is starting Monday, January 22nd. People can start to file for one of these new Real ID licenses. First of all, what is Real ID? And me as a citizen of California, why would I need it?
Great question. Now, basically, a Real ID is just a driver's license. It's a new type of driver's license. It is part of the Real ID Act that Congress passed and mandated in 2005. Think about how long ago that is. And just finally, states are implementing that because the federal government basically said no more extensions. Everybody's been putting it off and off and off because with a new Real ID, you're required to show additional information, basically, to get that Real ID. And the Real ID enhances and standardizes security requirements across all states that have various ID standards right now so that everybody is, or the government is basically assured that who that ID belongs to is that person. And it's in response to 9/11 that they passed this act. And finally, like I said, the government is saying You can't delay this any longer. All states need to switch over to the Real ID. And the January 22nd date is not a date you have to have the ID. It's the first date that California is allowing drivers to apply for the new Real ID.
Okay.
Now, why do you need it? Well, if you're going to be traveling interstate from, let's say, California to Arizona, California to Michigan, New York, any other state, when you're crossing state lines on a plane or a bus or a train, anywhere you have to go through TSA or security checkpoints, you have to show an ID. And with the new Real ID, it's going to be required by October 1st, 2020, to have your Real ID or carry a passport. So in the meantime, you can still use your current driver's license, and you have basically 2.5+ years to upgrade to that Real ID. And by that October 1st, 2020 deadline, if you're going to be traveling to other states in the U.S., you're going to have a Real ID or show a passport to get across state lines and through security to get on that plane.
So let's just put it out there. So if I'm not saying that the people out there are, but if I don't want to travel and I'm just a homebody and I'm boring and I don't want to go anywhere and I'm not going to fly in a plane, do I need to get one of these Real IDs, or can I continue to just use my California state-issued driver's license?
Yeah, great question. There's a lot of confusion with the Real ID. First off, many people haven't heard about it. And the people that have are totally confused about it. They don't know what they can use it for, if they can keep their current driver's license, or what they have to do. So let's get that straight. You can still use your regular driver's license to drive, to vote, for ID. There is no requirement that you have to upgrade to the Real ID for any of those purposes.
Gotcha.
The only reason you need the Real ID is to get through security checkpoints, TSA, travel to other states where you have to go through security. Well, and that is going to be required. It starts, again, on Monday, January 22nd, and is going to be required for you to use a Real ID on October 1st, 2020.
Well, and it sounds like to me, it's just going to make the whole traveling process a lot smoother and a lot more, getting people in, getting people out. I mean, there's obviously additional requirements to get one of these Real IDs. And most of us, not everybody, but most of us are going to travel. So it's going to be a good idea to apply for one of these Real IDs. You're going to have to show additional information. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And this also, if you get it, if you do decide to apply for it, will replace your California driver's license. So you don't have to have both.
That's correct. You don't have to have both. And to talk about that, we actually recommend that you do upgrade to the Real ID, because most people do travel, whether they're just going, we're in California, if they're just going to Vegas, Nevada or Arizona, even, states next door to us, if you're getting on that plane, you will need to have the Real ID by, again, I'm going to keep mentioning the date because there's a lot of confusion, by October 1st, 2020. So there's no reason not to. It replaces your normal driver's license. You can use the Real ID for every purpose you need a regular driver's license, whether you're going to the bank and have to show ID, or you're voting, or for a loan, or any other purpose, or driving, if you get pulled over and get a ticket, which we can help you with. The Real ID will be your new driver's license. So there really isn't any reason not to get a Real ID, especially if your driver's license is coming up for renewal. Why not just upgrade then if it's coming up for renewal in the next 2+ years? And then you'll never have to worry about it again, because the last thing you want is to travel, whether it's on pleasure, business, or even an emergency last minute, and get to the airport, have to go through security and TSA, and they say, hey, you can't get on that plane because you don't have the new ID. You're going to get screwed.
And that's going to be real, bothersome with, the people that you're going to see, whether it's business or pleasure. And so that's why we're talking about this. We know the when, we know the why. Now let's talk about the how. How do I upgrade the driver's license that I have right now? If I wanted to go out Monday, Steve, and I wanted to get and apply for one of these Real IDs, can I do it online? Do I got to go out to the DMV field office? And when I do, what do I have to bring with me? Or if I'm doing it from home, if you can, what do I have to have in order to apply for one of these Real IDs?
Okay, very important to understand this is, number one, you cannot do this online. You
Gotcha.
have to do it in person. Now, remember, why do you have to do it in person? Because the point of the Real ID is to add new security features
Gotcha.
to the state's driver's license and to standardize those security features and to basically prove that you are who you are and that the ID is, valid and accurate and all that kind of stuff. So you got to go into your DMV. Now, we recommend you make an appointment because we have no idea how busy the offices are going to be with this. I would think there's not going to be a flood of people doing this, but, going to the DMV is a frustrating thing to begin with.
I don't think it matters what state you're in, Steve. That's a universal sign of frustration when you have to go to the DMV.
Oh, it's worse than the dentist and getting a tooth pulled because you go in and you're sitting there for, an hour to 2 hours to begin with, and even if you have an appointment, you're waiting for your number.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't matter.
So it's always better to make an appointment. Now, when you go to the DMV, be ready with the required documentation because the last thing you want to do is go there and say, no, you can't get the ID and you have to come back with this documentation. So what do you need?
Yeah, what do you need?
To prove your identity? Well, bring your current driver's license, number one, and you're also going to have to bring either a birth certificate or a passport to prove your identity. Now, if you don't, it's not required to have a passport, but if you have one, that's easy, or bring a birth certificate. And that proves your identity. You're going to also have to prove that you're a California resident, that you don't live in Nevada, Arizona, or any other state. So what can you do to prove? Well, if you own a home, you could bring your mortgage bill, or if you rent a home, you could bring your lease agreement, or maybe bring a utility bill. They'll accept that,
okay.
Water, power, electric, and have your address and your name on that utility bill. You can bring any other approved document. If you go to the DMV website, there is a section there about what documentation you could bring for the Real ID. The actual web address is very long, so it's best to just go to the DMV website, the main website, and just click on the Real ID tab to get to the page where it shows you the documentation. The other thing that you're going to have to bring is proof of your Social Security number. Now, what can you do to prove that? Well, if you have your Social Security card, obviously bring that, but they'll also accept a paycheck that discloses that Social Security number.
Okay.
So assuming you have a job in California, bring in your paycheck. It has the Social Security number on there. Typically, it might have the first part of it X'd out and the last four numbers are there, but bring that in. They'll accept that. Other issues come up. What if you got married or divorced and your name changed? Well, you're going to have to prove, you are who you say you are, and that is your legal name. So if you got married, you might want to bring your marriage license. They'll accept that. If you got divorced and you change your name back to a different name, your divorce decree. You're going to have to bring that information if your name changed at all for any purpose.
Well, that's good to know. One thing I think people need to understand, too, Steve, by the way, in case you've just joined us here on Community Focus, talking with Steve Miller, and he is the president and CEO of Getdismissed.com. If you want to fight a traffic ticket, because there's actually a pretty cool thing by looking in the back of your traffic ticket, which I didn't know about, and you can, without having to appear in a courtroom, contest your traffic ticket. And according to the guy that's been doing it for 14 years, most of the time, it actually works. So check it out. Go to Getdismissed.com. But we are talking about the Real ID. And what I want to talk about right now, Steve, is we do not know, because we are not in government, which they know all, we do not know if this is something that eventually, even if you don't want to travel, is something that's going to have to be required. So right now, it is just for travel purposes, if that's something that you do on a even semi-regular basis, correct?
Correct. I don't know if they're totally going to be replacing your current driver's license with this. It is mandated that you will need this if you are going to travel. You will need to have this by October 1st, 2020, and you could start getting this on Monday, January 22nd, 2018. My sense is, why would you need the current driver's license? Why wouldn't you just have the real ID? But they're not saying they're getting rid of the regular ID driver's license. I haven't read anything that says that's totally going away. Your current driver's license will work now and continue to work when you get on a plane for the next 2.5 years, even if you don't upgrade to the real ID. But after that drop-dead date, after the October 1st, 2020, will they get rid of the regular driver's license? I don't know. Personally, I see no reason why they wouldn't just go to one form of ID and just make it all compliant with the Real ID Act.
Well, it seems like it's very similar. It's basically you're carrying an identification card. It says who you are. It's got the pertinent information on it. The only difference is, from what we can tell, is that the process that you have to use in order to get one and the documentation that you need in order to get one, which makes it certain it is you. It makes it a lot less likely that there's going to be some type of a fraud going on. In my mind, I would think everybody would want this regardless of travel. Steve.
Yeah, and that's my opinion too. And why not? It's for your own security anyways. I mean, you're validating you are who you are. That driver's license is more secure. It's validated. It can be used whether you plan on traveling now or have no idea whether you're going to travel. You can use it as your normal driver's license. It is your normal driver's license if you get pulled over by an officer or have to show ID. So why wouldn't you have the real ID? And by the way, let me just clarify any questions that anybody may have about the Real ID program.
Yeah.
The DMV, again, has a lot of information right on their website that you can go and click to. It has a list of all the required documents to apply, what it can be used for, what it doesn't need to be used for right now. And if you just go to dmv.ca.gov, all that information is there. They have a few pages of downloadable PDFs you can print out and read all about the new Real ID.
Well, also, there's currently, this is kind of an interesting tidbit as we kind of get close to wrapping up here, Steve. By the way, we're with Steve Miller from the Getdismissed.com website, and if you need help fighting a traffic ticket, you don't want to go to court, which I don't think any of us do, I would highly suggest you check it out. All states are going to be required to comply with this, but there's also currently 9 states whose ID cards, as of right now, do not meet federal minimum security requirements. What happens, or do you know, if anything, with those states? Now, California, I want to point out, is not one of those states. We're currently in compliance and starting Monday going to be moving towards the Real ID. But what happens to those 9 states, Steve?
Yeah, California is in compliance with the federal program. Nothing you need to worry about. You can use your regular driver's license, even though we suggest beginning to upgrade. In those other 9 states, now, I haven't gone back and checked specifically in the last couple of weeks, but if a state is not compliant by Monday, I believe, then there may be an issue with those states' driver's license. And there may be an issue if you're flying to those
Interesting.
9 states. Now, I don't want to get anybody overly concerned. I'm sure it's a very confusing process. I'm sure TSA is confused. You know, what do they do in those 9 states? And those 9 states that as of a few weeks ago were not compliant are Kentucky, Maine, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, and Washington, the state of Washington.
Okay.
I do need to double check, but I'm hoping that most of those states, have got compliant since then and are moving forward on their programs, and then there is no issue. But I wouldn't want to be stuck in a state that may have an issue. I would just bring my passport with me if I was traveling in those states, just as an extra precaution.
Then you don't end up getting stuck anywhere.
Right. But I will say that I do know TSA currently, even under the current law, they do have programs to pull people aside, validate who they are so that you won't miss a plane. They're doing their best to get people through so they don't have to leave people behind from wherever they're going. So I'm hoping it's not an issue.
They're not going to want any of these problems either. So, I mean, they don't want to have to pull people aside and, create a big fuss. So if they can help people get through, I'm sure they have their programs in place to, in transition, make sure that this is an easy process for everybody.
Yeah, and matter of fact, as we're talking right now, I'm just online, and I did just check something. All states do have extensions now, even those states that I mentioned. So I'm hoping there won't even be an issue in those states.
Oh, good. And hopefully, like you said, just bring a passport just in case if you are going to one of those 9 states, because the last thing you want is to be able to be inconvenienced, seeing family, seeing friends. You're on a business trip. It's very important. And you get stuck at the airport. That's not something that anybody wants to have to deal with.
Right. And I'll clarify one other thing, because we're talking about 2 different dates, and it's very important to understand the difference between these 2 dates. January 22nd, this Monday, is just the date that the program starts where you could begin applying for the Real ID. Don't run out there and freak out. If you don't have a new Real ID, you can't travel. Everything will be okay. Use your regular driver's license. October 1st, 2020 is the drop-dead date to get your new Real ID if you're traveling. After that date, if you don't have a Real ID, you can still travel with your current driver's license. You just have to bring your passport. And I just want to make that clear. You can still use your normal driver's license if you haven't upgraded. You're just going to have to bring your passport with you if you travel domestically. And to me, it's a little crazy. Why carry 2 documents? Why not upgrade to the Real ID?
I'm the same way. I have too many cards, from my Panera Bread rewards card to my driver's license to, my credit cards. The last thing I want is an additional thing to carry around. So my plan is to go out there and make sure that I get the Real ID, maybe not Monday, but as soon as possible. Because, it's just going to make things a lot easier for my life. And I imagine, I'm going to feel more secure. If you do it, you're going to feel more secure after 9/11, which changed the world forever. This is something that needs to be done. Get everybody standardized and make sure that we're all on the same page. Well, we are almost out of time here. Steve Miller, thanks so much for joining us on Community Focus, kind of bringing light to the Real ID. To be quite honest, before I got your email, I didn't even know about it. So I was like, is this supposed to be going to my spam email? But it is real. It is legit. People need to just go to the California Department of Motor Vehicles website, and you can check it out there. They have all the things that you need to get one and get one in person, which you can start doing as of Monday. And also want to just plug you one more time. If people have any issues, if they've gotten a traffic ticket and they need help on that, where if it's, speeding, red light cameras, signing infractions, cell phone use, don't do that, texting, whatever it is, you can help. All they got to do is read the back of the ticket, and they can go to Getdismissed.com.
Yep, thank you very much. Yep, if you get a ticket, go to Getdismissed.com to find out information about the Real ID. Go to dmv.ca.gov, and we're happy to help anybody that ever gets a traffic ticket.
Well, any further information on the Real ID or anything that involves San Diego, California roadways, Steve, we'll have you back on the show, and I appreciate your time, my friend.
Thank you, Noah. Appreciate it.
Noah Dingley right here on Community Focus. Stay tuned. There's more coming up on these very same Salem Network stations.
Life is full of bittersweet transitions. It's difficult to know how these changes will impact us over time. For some people, difficult transitions like retirement, divorce, or loss of a loved one can hit harder than expected and may contribute to feelings of hopelessness or even thoughts of suicide. The risk of suicide is even higher for men over 50 who served our country. Guys like me. That's why support from friends and family makes such a big difference. Every day, your actions could help save a life. Together, we got this. Learn how you can help save a life at veteranscrisisline.net.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over? I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things.
I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol.
If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
There's always a moment of truth where I say, look, it's either put up or shut up. And it was time to put up. I had crossed that thin line. It was 100 plus degrees. We were hot. We were on fire. We were yelling our hearts out. You could feel the intensity rising. Even in our tiredness, even in our weakness, even in our pain, we continued to push. I told myself, you can suck up the pain for another 1.5 miles, and you will be a Marine. Not many people believe that I could do it. I don't know where I got the energy from. I don't know where the pain went to. But all I know is that I had what it took. I am a United States Marine.
PFC Darrell Willis serves his country as a Marine. Will you? Visit Marines.com or call 1-800-MARINES. The few, the proud, the Marines.
NLS Bard gives patrons the freedom to read their way.
Bard is this beautiful web-based program for searching for books and for the ability to download them.
For more information, call 1-888-NLS-READ.
Of course, I want our kids to eat fresh, healthy foods all the time. But we don't have a supermarket nearby, so it's a challenge.
I wish we were closer to good health care because of our son's asthma. Frankly, it's scary at times.
I'd love for our family to live in a nice house, near a great school, but
none of these resources exist in our neighborhood.
Many variables can shape the outcome of children's lives, like the zip code where they grow up. That's because not all communities have the same opportunities, such as quality schools and housing, fresh food, and good health care. There are many ways to improve communities, so everyone has a fair chance. Regardless of zip code, you can make a difference. Join with HUD and local leaders to improve your community. Learn how at hud.gov/fairhousing. That's hud.gov/fairhousing. Fair housing, shared opportunity in every community. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
The American Red Cross urgently needs blood and platelet donations and asks donors to schedule an appointment to give now. Your blood donation matters to the patients counting on life-saving transfusions. Visit redcrossblood.org.